The civil rights movement was a decades-long struggle by African Americans to achieve equal rights and end racial segregation in the United States. It took place primarily during the 1950s and 1960s, but its roots can be traced back much further. The movement's origins can be found in the aftermath of the American Civil War. In the early 20th century, they began to organize politically, forming groups such as the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or NAACP, to fight for their rights. The boycott, which lasted for over a year, resulted in the desegregation of Montgomery Bus buses and helped to launch the career of the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. as a civil rights leader. Despite these legislative achievements, the struggle for racial equality and justice continues to this day. The movement's legacy, however, continues to inspire activists around the world, and its impact on American society is immeasurable. The struggle for civil rights was part of a broader global movement against colonialism and for racial equality. For example, the Indian leader Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy of nonviolent resistance had a profound influence on King and other civil rights leaders. The NSP focused on legal challenges to segregation, while other groups, such as the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, or SCLC, it led to significant legal and social reforms that advanced the cause of racial equality. But it is important to remember that the movement was not without its complexities, and that the struggle for civil rights continues today. There were differences in tactics and goals among the various organizations and leaders involved. For example, some activists, such as Malcolm X, advocated for Black separatism and self-defense, while King promoted integration and nonviolent resistance. And the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC, employed nonviolent protest tactics to raise awareness and bring about change. Although slavery had been abolished, African Americans continued to face severe discrimination and violence at the hands of white Southerners. This was especially true in the South, where racial segregation laws, known as Jim Crow, were enforced through a combination of state and local laws. However, the movement gained momentum and support from people of all races across the country. By the 1960s, it culminated in a series of major legislative victories, including the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. These laws mandated separate facilities for Black and white Americans in areas such as transportation, education, housing, and public spaces. Despite this oppression, African Americans resisted through various means. One of the most significant events in the movement was the Montgomery Bus Boycott, which began in 1955 after Rosa Parks, a Black seamstress, refused to give up her seat to a white man on a segregated bus. Throughout the movement, activists faced constant harassment and violence from white Southerners who were resistant to change. These laws outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, or national origin, and prohibited racial violence and intimidation at the polls. It's important to note that the civil rights movement was not a monolithic entity, but rather a diverse and sometimes contentious coalition of groups and individuals. In addition, the movement was not limited to the United States. In conclusion, the civil rights movement was a pivotal chapter in American history. Do you know anything about this? Let me know in the comments.